All right, good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. I just wanted to give everybody a chance to trickle in and making sure that we weren't getting started too soon. So here we are today. I'm very, very honored to welcome our panelists today, Amber D. Vaughn and Ash Cash. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them because these two folks are well qualified and they're here to speak about something so important to us and to our community. So I want to let you know a little bit more about them so that as we ask questions at the end of the session, you know that they're the right people to answer them for you. So today I have with us, again, we're starting with Amber Vaughn, and Amber has started her own agency. She's a graduate of Southern University A&M College with a dual bachelor's degree in accounting and finance. And she's a licensed CPA in Georgia. So over here, I'm living in New York, she's in Georgia, but again, having her expertise on our call today is just gonna be so important. In addition to that, she has management experience with 2 of the big 4 accounting firms, and she's a financial advisor at her own company, financial advisor Vaughn CPA. And so as we come together today, please, please, please ask her any questions you have. She's super passionate about financial literacy and helping you understand what it means to live within your means and don't overpay and get out of debt and pay yourself. So with that said, I'd also like to introduce our other panelist, Ash Cash. He is the financial motivator and educator. He's an author, a wealth coach, and of course, he's speaking with us today. And he has 15 years of banking experience, personal finance, and he's also a motivational speaker. I don't know how many of you are actively on social media these days, because I know we're all in our cocoons, but he also hosts a morning show every single day, and he's always giving out very inspirational and wise tips for folks who are trying to elevate themselves financially. He has established himself as a thought leader and someone that we should trust in corporate America. And he's definitely been seen on so many different media outlets such as CNN, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. And the most important thing that he's done to date, I think, and maybe he might think otherwise, is he's the he's the founder of the World Money of Finance. I'm sorry, I'm getting this all wrong. He is the founder at Mindright Management and Financial Educator. So that said, I'd like to welcome both of our speakers, and please, if I missed anything, feel free to say anything that I've missed as well.
No, you hit it right on the nose. Thank you so much for having us, and just excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, great. We have a lot of things to talk about, and I just want to start by, we know that both of you are super qualified, so I'm going to start with Amber. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about what started you on this path towards financial empowerment, financial education, becoming a financial professional?
Okay, so I've told the story so many times, and I feel like every time I tell it, I get overly passionate again about it. So it actually started when I was about 15 or 16 years old. I started working my very first job. I was a cashier at a grocery store. And, I worked for an entire year. I think going into January, February, you get your W-2. And so I was like, wow, I've made $6,000 slinging groceries at the grocery store for an entire year. And I don't even have $20 let alone a bank account. So from that moment on, I have vowed to myself to always have something to show for myself. So starting at 16 years old, I've been a very big advocate for always saving, always paying myself first. And so basically with that mindset, when I decided to go to college, I knew it was going to be something in the financial realm. I liked accounting, I liked finance, so hey, why not double major? Did them both. Ended up landing a job in, corporate America, working at one of the big 4 firms, and basically just stayed in the field. And again, it all started from that W-2 and not having anything to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
Toggling from mute and off mute, I feel like that's like, oh, sorry, I was on mute. That's going to be the thing of the day. So Ash, I want to ask you as well. You especially having such a long career and being an author and being able so authoritative on this space, like what started it? Because you don't go from 0 to 100 overnight. So I'd like to hear how that started.
Nah, for sure. Similar to Amber, I got my start at the grocery store too. My career started at 8 years old, actually. So, I grew up in a single parent home. And so I'm the youngest of 3. And my mom worked like factory jobs. Really, you know, I grew up in New York City. I grew up in a project, so I got my PhD. But that's my public housing degree. So I grew up in a project, and so my mom, single parent, was, you know, really, you know, she was, you know, working factory jobs, didn't bring enough money to take care of the household. And so I wanted to pitch in. So at 8 years old, you know, I started packing bags at the local supermarket. You know, just making money from there, was excited. Then graduated at 12 years old, selling mixtapes and t-shirts at 125th Street. So I've always been an entrepreneur, which is actually how I got the nickname Ash Cash. And then comes 17, I started working at a video store, you know, rest in peace, Blockbuster Videos. And then I did that for about
You're telling your age there.
Yeah, I am, right? So I started, I worked there 2 years. And then at 19 years old, I got into banking. So at 19, I had an opportunity to become a teller. Was already, I love money. I was already into like helping people manage money and, earn money, things of that nature. And so the rest is sort of like history. I did everything in banking, from teller to personal banker to private banker to CEO of a credit union, and decided, in the words of Jay-Z, there's much bigger issues in the world I know, but I first had to take care of the world I know. What I started realizing was that the wealthy people I was managing money for had like teams of people, right? They had accountants, they had financial advisors, they had a mortgage broker, they had an investment broker, they had a business manager. They had like a whole team of people helping them manage their money, while people from where I'm from don't even have one person, right? They go to the check cashing place. So I was like, nah, you can't take all of this knowledge and continue to help a system that's already set up for them to win. And so I had to, take care of the world I know. And so I decided to leave the banking world and become a financial educator. And as you mentioned, I've written 8 books. 4 of them have been bestsellers. Before COVID, been traveling the world, just teaching people about how to change their mindset first and foremost to manage money. And yeah, been featured on a lot of stuff, but mainly my goal was to take the knowledge that I learned from wealthy people, and how the systems they use, the mindset that they have, and transfer it so that I can help in whatever ways I can close the wealth gap.
Wow. And I'm so glad that you said the wealth gap. And another thing, I think both of you said this, Amber and Ash, is you talked about this mindset of like, okay, I didn't have nothing to show for it when I saw my W-2, but I made all this money. And then also just thinking again about how do we manage our finances? And I feel like, as Black people, as people in impoverished communities, or coming from poverty, or just being at a disadvantage from the jump, right? We don't have a mindset, right? We learn the mindset as we go through this crash course of life, and we realize, dang, I really should have did something different with that money, but we learn from experience. So how can we, given your experience, what you guys know, what are some ways that we can rethink the mindset that we have on finance? Like, what are some of the first steps of understanding how to take care of our finances?
So, Ash, I'm going to take this one first. So I'm going to speak from personal experience. I feel like a lot of people, definitely people of color, those of us who decide to go into a 4-year degree, 2-year degree programs, and, we accumulate a lot of student loan debt. And I'm gonna go ahead and just be very honest, be very transparent. So I had that mindset, well, you know what, long as I live, I'm gonna owe somebody. So I'm gonna take out these loans, pay for school, and just, make the little payment every month for the rest of my life. So one thing, I think maybe like 4 or 5 years had passed, and I was making the minimum payment, and I looked at my balance. I was like, crap, like I've been paying on these loans for 5 years and my balance is still the same. And I gave that call to Sally Mae. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I've been making payments. Why is my balance the same? And it's so crazy because it's like, I learned this in college. Again, I was accounting finance major. I knew the principles of interest and how it accrues and how it compounds and all of this. And it's just like, it hit home for me then when she said, well, out of the $200, you're paying every month, $195 is going to interest. Only $5 is going to principal. And really, when I had that conversation with her, I mean, I was like livid. I ended up hanging up the phone in her face. My mindset flipped. It changed. I'm like, how do I get out of this? I'm not going to be making these payments for the rest of my life. Like, it's so much other things that I can do. So again, just having that conversation, mindset totally flipped. Came up with a plan, sat down like with my little Excel sheet, looked at my income, what I projected my income to be over the next few years, and like, okay, hey, this is what I need to do every month. This is the payments I need to make every month in order to pay this off. So with that mindset, that change of mindset, like in 4 years after, you know, putting myself on this plan, paid it off. And I really, that's something like when I talk to my clients, I really encourage them, like when it comes to budgeting and money management and financial literacy, it all starts in. So that's, you know, again, that's kind of really what I'm passionate about there.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, so for me, you know, changing the mindset is just understanding that there are 4 types of people in this world, right? And so you have consumers, you have producers, you have investors, and you have philanthropists. The mindset that we have in our communities is that of a consumer, meaning that we start to exchange time for money first and foremost, right? And so, you know, we work with, and this is what we're told: we work hard, we make money, we buy things, we work hard, we make money, we buy things. And so that's the mindset of just being a consumer. But if you really want to be financially free, you have to change your relationship with money. Instead of working hard for money, you have to make sure that money is working hard for you. And so the way you do that is making sure that you're not just a consumer, right? That as you just make money, that you're just not consuming, but you're actually circulating money, right? So even the language that we use, when we talk about money, we talk about spend money, right? We make money and we spend money, but we shouldn't be spending money. We should be circulating money, right? Meaning that once we make the money, in order to break the cycle of poverty, break the cycle of generational poverty, we have to make that money, you know, recycle and circulate within our community. So number one is changing your mindset and saying, you know what, I'm not just going to be a consumer, I'm actually going to be all 4. I'm going to consume, but I'm also going to be a producer, right? I'm going to produce something, you know, so that whether it's a product or service, I'm going to produce something that other people can consume. So now I'm not, you know, working for money. I'm not exchanging time for money. I'm actually exchanging, you know, money for value. What value do I bring by producing? Now I'm also going to be an investor. As I make money, I'm not just going to spend that money and let it go out of my household. I'm actually going to invest that money in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, businesses, real estate, whatever it is, but investing, right, that money. And then lastly, I'm also going to be a philanthropist, right? I'm also going to give to the causes I care about, to the communities I care about, to the communities that help me, so that way I can still promote the values, right, that I promote. And just from a universal law standpoint, whether you believe in the universe, whether you believe in God, Buddha, Allah, whatever it is, the more you give, the more you get. And so I think that if we start having that mindset, if we start saying, you know what, I'm not just going to be a consumer, I'm going to be a consumer, I'm going to produce, I'm going to invest, I'm going to give back. We do that, and there's no way whatsoever we will ever be in poverty, and we'll break that cycle. And I think that's the mindset that we need to have, is that what can I do to become all 4 of these types of folks instead of just the one?
I love, yeah, right? I love that. And the 4 is so important. And that's definitely something I'm going to take note of and make sure that we share out and we talk about, because again, thinking about how we build our economy, how do we build Black enterprise up, how do we build our communities up? Like you said, you can't just be one, you have to be all of them. So thinking about it, starting as a consumer and that being our mindset, where should we prioritize? Like, how do we prioritize that? Because if we've always been a consumer, do we just jump straight into investing? Do we get started in producing? Should we kind of stop consuming and become a producer first? Like, how can we think about it in that way? Because again, that's all about the mindset. Like, we need to start training our mind to think about these things differently. So where do we prioritize, I guess, the first step?
Yeah, I say in that order, right? Because obviously in order to survive, right? Like we have our needs, so we have to consume, right? You have food, shelter, clothing, the things that you need to survive, on this earth. And so I say start as a consumer, but number two is become a producer, right? Before you invest, because what happens is that if people jump from consumption to investment, now you're going from working hard for money, right? And now you're taking that money and you're putting that money into investment that is sort of out of your control almost, right? Because when you're investing, you know, nothing is guaranteed. So that's sort of out of your control. But if you go from consumer to producer, right? Meaning that you are, whether it's your intellectual property, you have some type of product or service that you could provide that people need, that you could immediately start making income from. I wrote my first book, Mindright, Moneyright, in 2009. Every month, I still get paid from that book that I wrote in 2009. This is my intellectual property that I wrote in 2009, but I still get paid every single month from that, right? Over and over and over again. I did the work one time, and then I get paid for it over and over again. And so all of us, I don't care who you are, right? All of us have some type of intellectual property, some type of skill, some type of service, something that we can do that can produce income for us, right? And they say the average millionaire has 7 sources of income, but even if you want to be even if you don't want to be a millionaire, which I don't know who don't want to be a millionaire, but even if you don't want to be a millionaire, in order to be financially free, you should have at least 4 sources of income, that you're not just relying on the one. And so I really think that number 2 is producing, right? Making sure that you're creating something one time and let it pay you over and over again. And the funny thing or the best thing about that is that as you're bringing in this extra income, you use that income to start to invest. You use that income to start to become a philanthropist. So I believe that if you don't have multiple streams of income, if you don't have that financial freedom fund, the 6 to 8 months of expenses, then you should create something that's giving you that income, and then you start focusing on investing, and then you start focusing on, being a philanthropist, because most people take the money that they earn and they might invest, but then that affects their quality of life. Right. And so the goal is not to get to this destination. We're not going to suffer now, and then when we get older, we're going to retire. No, I want you to eat your cake and eat it. What does it? Have your cake and eat it too, because that's what cakes are made for. So I want you to be abundant right now, like not later. I want you to be abundant right now. And there's 3 ways. You can either increase your income, decrease your expenses, or do both. I want you to increase your income so you can live the best life that you could possibly live, because I believe that abundance is our birthright. And so now, if you have those multiple streams of income, you can live your best life right now, and you could, prepare yourself to live a good life in the future as well.
And Amber, so kind of building off of that, I guess you've worked with folks who are trying to manage a budget, trying to probably decrease their expenses and take care of some of their bills, their debts, etc. So how can we apply some of those tips, I guess, from becoming a consumer to a producer? But then also, what happens for people who work 9 to 5, right? Like making the time to be a producer on top of working at a company, that sometimes is a lot for folks to handle. So how do we kind of find a balance there?
Yeah, and I think Ash, he hinted to this in, his last spiel, was really balancing those needs versus wants. Mm-hmm. So one biggest thing that I feel like a lot of my clients, that they face is like, well, I work hard for my money, I deserve to, treat myself. And so it's one thing I always tell them: treating yourself shouldn't set you back. Like it's so, it's so easy to say, well, I work at 9 to 5, I'm working 45, working 50 hours a week, I get this bonus or I get my check, I want to enjoy a nice meal, I want to, enjoy this big trip. And it's like, well, I agree with you. You definitely deserve to do that, but is that going to set you back? What about those bigger goals that you have in mind? So I think, again, it goes back to that mindset, need versus wants. How do I balance the two? Then when you think about, this being in a producer, generated other sources of income, now I guess I kind of fall guilty with that as well, because it took me a while for me to kind of get out of my comfort zone and say, hey, I have skills, I have things that I can bring to the table outside of my corporate job. How do I make those things work for me? And again, I had to change my mindset. It's, well, am I going to leap? Am I willing? Because everything is not guaranteed, everything is not promised. So it's like, well, if I fail, how much is this going to set me back? How can I pick myself up to move forward. So it's like really, you know, evaluating those things. And like, again, sometimes entrepreneurship is not for everyone. You know, a lot of people are just, you know, hey, I would rather just follow a good leader, and that's perfectly okay. And it's like, one thing I don't like to do is push people to say, hey, you know, start your own business, go, you know, go do this massive project, when I know, like, typically that's not what's in their heart to do. So it's like really finding your niche and working within that.
See, and I like that you say it's not, sometimes not in your heart to be an entrepreneur, right? I'll just give a little personal story for me. I was like, I don't want to talk to nobody. If you're not trying to build something from the ground up, we ain't got nothing in common, because that's my mindset. I love to build things, right? But what you realize is on this journey is it's a lot of work. And sometimes you need people who aren't trying to be the builders to help you build what you're trying to build. And there's no shame in that on any side of the coin.
Right, exactly.
Thinking about how we use our skills, because to me, our skills are our currency. That's the real truth and freedom. And that's what you said, Ash, as this idea of like using your intellect and your mental, your intelligence to create things that are going to set you free, that are going to give you the opportunity to move around this world the way in which we're supposed to. And so that's kind of what I like to tell people, is that sometimes you just have to find what you're good at, what your skill is, and then use that as your currency, whether that's in a job at a company that pays you every week or whatever, or whether that's doing it on your own. You have to figure that out. But what happens is once you start to get in your groove, and then you start getting little like money coming in here, and it might be different money that you've never seen before, you have to, again, go back to that mindset of, what am I trying to accomplish with this? How am I going to set myself up so that in 5 years, in 10 years, I'm not looking back like, dang, I should have did something different. And so I think all of this is absolutely related. And so for anybody else on the call, because I know we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon, but I also just wanted to, one, let you guys know if you have questions, definitely drop them in the panel, because we're going to open the floor up for questions soon. But then before we get to that part, so when you're working with clients, when they're coming to you and they're saying, okay, I'm a mess financially, right? What are some of those big messes, right? Because everybody feels like they're a mess, right? Everyone's like, oh man, I need to do something better. Clearly people are over here making millions of dollars, and I'm over here with $500 to my name, right? So what are those challenges they come to you for? Is it just debt? Is it balancing the budget? And kind of like, what do you have, tools, skills? How do you help them kind of overcome some of that stuff?
So yeah, for me, a lot of clients reach out, because, you know, I post a lot about myself personally, like goals accomplished, you know, paying off the student loan debt or paying off a car, doing certain things. So it's like, how did you do it? Like, I'm in debt too. I want to do the same thing. And it's crazy. Like, once I sit down and really we have that consultation, talk about their income, and we talk about it's so easy to identify, like, hey, why are you going to Macy's, you know, every week, you know, spending $200 or $300? Well, oh, they sale, like, hey, newsflash, they have it every day, every weekend. Like, you're not missing anything. So really, that is the biggest thing. It's like really controlling their spending, and it's also helping them manage the money that they have coming in. Because it's like, typically when they have income, it's like, well, oh, you know, I know this bill is due next week. That one is due 2 weeks from now. I'll use next check to pay that. It's like, no, let's do this budget. Let's talk about which checks are going to cover what. And it's like, why put off tomorrow what we can do today? So those are the biggest conversations that I have with them. And yes, like debt pay, saving for different financial goals like retirement. I'm not an investment advisor, but I have a great one in my network. But it's just like doing certain things like that, putting those other people within their network, connecting them so they can reach those type of goals is like some of the biggest things that we talk about.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, for me, a lot of the folks that I work with are mainly when you speak to them, and I think it's, you know, everyone, it's a mindset, you know, and so that's why I focus on the mindset first and foremost, and helping them realize, you know, the formula to manage money the right way, right? To think about money the right way, because in order to, you know, again, like I said earlier, I think that, you know, that abundance is our birthright, and abundance, you don't have to do anything to have abundance. You just have to be abundant. And I think that as you're learning how to be abundant, the actions that you take will now coincide with that abundance. If you come from a background, so I, like for me personally, I remember coming from a background where, because my mother didn't have, my mother had this number, right? So anytime she made money, she always stayed at that number. If she made extra, she fed the community. She was always giving away, because, she was used to just having just enough. And because she was used to having just enough, that was her mindset. It was almost sort of like this guilt, to have abundance, or to have more than enough. And that transferred to me, right? When I started, I was a banker. I was making, good money, but I was spending it all. It kind of felt like a disease. Like, oh my God, I have an extra $5,000 in my bank account. Let me go buy a car. Let me go buy some clothes, or let me go do some stuff. Because for me, my mode of operation was, only enough, right? Like, I should only have enough. I shouldn't have extra. And so I had to work internally with that mindset to kind of get rid of that mindset and understand that I should have more than enough, right? And I say that to say that a lot of people, if you look at their spending habits, if you look at how they operate, a lot of it is attached to their money story. What is their money story? How did they start off? What about their money story that they're still holding on to? And how do you shock it, right? How do you shock the system? How do you change that money story? So for me, it's about mindset work, right? How can we change your mindset? How can we change your relationship with money? Because as you change your mindset, everything else starts to work out, right? You start to figure out better ways to manage money. You figure out, what that number is, right? So some people say, if I got $500 in my account, I'm broke. Right? Some people wait till they're negative to be broke. But I know people who, like, man, I got $20,000, I'm broke, right? And so what is that number? Like, how do you change your number? How do you change your bar? How do you say, you know what, I deserve to make more money. I deserve to have more money. And how do you do that? And so a lot of it is mindset. So working on the mindset first and foremost. And a lot of it is not just money related either. A lot of it is self-confidence. A lot of it is self-worth. A lot of it is what people believe they deserve. And so I usually start there with folks that I work with.
So you just hit a nerve, right? Because you talk about it's self-worth and what you believe you deserve, right? So I feel like a lot of my friends, and maybe even some people in the audience here, right? We have come from nothing. And our parents broke their back, right? Bust their behind to get us something. And now we are good. We're doing the best that we can with what we've got. And so you still feel guilty, and you still feel like, well, I have, like your mother, I have extra. So let me just keep giving away all of my extra to my family, to my friends, anybody who asks me, because I'm already okay. I'm going to be okay. I have other ways of making money. And so it is that mindset. And that's what I had to learn with my financial advisor. I was like, he's like, girl, you giving away too much of your money. Like, you ain't got nothing left for you. I was like, but I'm okay. My bills are paid. Like, and it's that mindset, again, going back to that. So I'm so glad that we touched on that. And we have started to get some questions from the audience. I just want to make sure we have time to answer them. So one of our audience members says, what is your advice about dealing with student loan debt?
Pay those people. First and foremost, pay them. And it really depends on, where you are, financially, like what's your income, what exactly do you owe? I know there's programs out here, especially like if you're in public service, if you work 10 years, it meant, they'll wipe away your debt if you make the minimum payments per month. But for someone, using myself as an example, and be completely transparent, I owe like close to $40,000 in student loans. And I knew that was a reasonable amount that I can tackle, that I can pay off. Even if it was a little bit more, I could have. But again, I sat down, made a payment, put together a payment plan, like, hey, in the next 4 years, I want to be done with this. And so basically I calculated what I needed to pay per month to reach that goal. And I let everything else in my budget kind of fall around that number. So, did I forego some trips? I sure did. Did I forego eating out a lot? I sure did. Did I forego a few shopping sprees? I sure did. So it's like, again, like, I know we've talked about it a lot. It's that mindset. And really, once you have that conversation, whether it's with your investment advisor, your financial advisor, a friend, but kind of once you start talking about your goals and your plans out loud, your mindset will change because you'll start to get other inputs from other people like, oh, I never really thought about it like that. You know, it's, like I said, yeah, going back again to the student loan debt, it's just really, what is your goal with it? Do you want to pay it off? Do you want to just, you know, hey, I just want to do enough so my credit score can stay good? Really asking yourself, what are your goals with that?
Yeah, and I would say also, you know, as you're tackling student loan debt, you know, I know Amber talked about this earlier about having, you know, a budget. I think that plan is what's most important. And to her point that she just made earlier, is that, like, what is the goal? I think first and foremost, right? You know, because some people, you know, want to just pay it off. Like, I'm tired of having debt. I don't want to be in debt and I want to pay it off. And so your plan should coincide with that. Or, you know, some people are like, you know what, I want to live my life, but I don't want to mess up my credit. So I want to pay just enough. And so whatever your thought process is, there's a plan for you, right? And I believe that everybody should have, you know, 3 sets of financial plans. You should have a short-term plan, so anything that you want to accomplish between 1 to 3 years. You should have a midterm plan, anything that you want to accomplish between 3 to 7 years, and you should have a long-term plan for anything that you want to accomplish within 7+ years. And then once you have those 3 types of plans, figure out where does the student loan fit? Is it a short-term plan? Do you want to pay it off within 1 to 3 years? Is it a midterm plan? Do you want to pay it off between 3 to 7 years? Or is it long-term, 7 years or above? But then you got to be smart about it, right? You have to be, and it's the acronym SMART. You got to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Not, you know, I'm tired of student loan debt and I want to get rid of this debt. No, you know, I'm going to pay off this student loan debt in the next 10 years. And this is how I'm going to go about it. I'm going to be specific. I'm going to measure it. I know it's achievable based on where I am today. I know it's realistic. And then timely. What's the time of the plan? You do that, then you'll tackle anything, student loan debt, you know, your financial goals, whatever it is. You always should have, you know, put them in those buckets: short-term, midterm, long-term, and then be smart about it. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely.
Awesome. And then another question, and then I think there might be a few others as well. So talking about credit is, what are some key steps to increase your credit score? I know understanding credit, I feel like, was the most difficult part of becoming an adult, because like, oh, I can get this and that, until you start applying for things. You're like, wait a minute, what's that number again? Why did that go down?
So I wrote a book called What the FICO, 12 Steps to Repairing Your Credit. And I talk about, you know, if you understand the FICO algorithm, then you're good, right? And so 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. 35, 30, 15, 10, 10.
Okay, that's jamming on the call now.
All right, so 35% of your score is your payment history. 30% of your score is your usage ratio. 15% of your score is the length of credit history, so how long you had credit. 10% is your credit mix, the different types of credit that you have. And the other 10% is any new credit that you have. So if you understand those 5 categories, right? Payment history. Make sure you're paying your bills on time. Make sure that you're not late, right, with your payments. And for the sake of your credit, late does not mean you got a late fee. Late means more than 30 days. So I'm not telling anybody, and the reason why this is important, I'm not telling anybody to not be late or to pay their bills late, because your credit card company or whoever you owe may charge you a late fee. But the goal, though, if you want to focus on your credit, make sure you're not 30 days late, because that's the only way it's going to affect your credit. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I've known people who said, man, I'm 5 days late and they already charged me a late fee, and so I'm going to wait till next month to pay it. But no, if you're 10 days late or 15 days late, still pay it before that 30 days, because it's not going to affect your credit until it's 31 days or more late, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is your usage ratio. Your usage ratio is 30% of your score, which means that, you know, in relation to how much credit you have, how much credit are you paying, right? Or how much credit are you using? And so on average, if you get $1,000 credit card, you should be only using 30% or less of your of what you have available. And so if you have $1,000 credit card limit, you should only be using $300, which is 30% of that. In fact, your credit score goes from 350 to 800. Anybody who has a 720 or above has excellent credit, and research has shown that those who have a 720 or above actually use between 10 to 15% of their credit. So keep your usage ratio low. 15% of your score is your length of credit history. So that just means as you're opening up credit, just don't close any accounts. Let the good credit go. You know, your credit mix just means that make sure that you have different mixes. You have a line of credit, you have a loan, you have a mortgage, you have different time, but that's, you know, time will tell as you need those things. And then lastly, new credit just means don't take out any credit that you don't need. If you look at the 5 categories though, the biggest 2, payment history, usage ratio, that's 65% of your score. The 15, 10, 10 will take care of itself, right? But focus on the 35, 30, and then you'll be fine.
I think Amber might have frozen, but I think that's all so important because, again, credit is something we don't talk about. We're not taught. We're not raised up in understanding a lot, oftentimes, because we're begging from Harry to pay Bob. Like, you know, we're trying to get by. But this generation, I know that we are going to turn that around. We are on the brink of something amazing, of changing the course of history. And I'm just so inspired by learning from you guys, being here with you folks, having everybody attend here. We also have live streams happening. So I've been getting people pinging me on the live stream. So we're just really excited. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Can you tell them where to find you, Ash? I know I follow you on everything, but for the folks who are in the audience, definitely let them know.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, definitely go to my website, iamashcash.com. But to your point, I'm very active on all social media platforms. So follow me on, I think I spend the most time on Instagram. So follow me on Instagram, iamashcash. But I'm also on Facebook, iamashcash, Twitter, iamashcash. So yeah, so just, you know, iamashcash is my handle. But you go, again, you can also visit my website, iamashcash.com.
Absolutely. And we're going to be tagging all the speakers. So these sessions are recorded, everybody. So if you missed something, if you want to go back to something, it's all recorded. We're going to take all the wisdom that these two have shared and boil it down and send it to you folks. So absolutely. I'm so thankful for you to be here. And Amber, can you tell them a little bit about where to follow you and where to find you after today?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on with my internet. But yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, your.fave.cp.llc. You can follow me on Facebook as well. First name, Amber Vaughn. Yeah, or go to my website, www.yourfavecpa.com. So yeah, just hit me up in any of those 3 areas and I'll be sure to reach back out to you.
Amazing. So I think, let me just make sure, I want to make sure I got to all the ones that I had here. Okay, we got the answers. Okay. So I think that's it. That puts us right at time. I'm just so thankful. Thank you both for being here today. This is inspiring. I mean, again, understanding the mindset behind finances, having the tools to build your finances and recognizing, having a plan. Like, don't just say like, yeah, I wish could get out of debt, or I wish I could improve my credit. Like, make sure you have a destination, a time period for when you want to accomplish that, because that's everything. And that's I think that's the first thing that I was able to be like, oh, okay, it's easy. I just need to set a date. Okay, cool. And then you just work and you build towards that. So I'm so thankful to have you both here. Thank you for sharing your light and your wisdom. And everybody, please follow these two. They're here. And thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having us, for sure.
All right. And that's the session.